Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Uncommon Conversations. I'm your host, Carly Bonar, and today we're going to be talking to Ren Founder Sophie Campise about acknowledging the shadows in the Kundalini lineage. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Carly. Great to be here.
So tell me a little bit about, first of all, how long have you been a Kundalini practitioner?
I did my training in 2019, so 5 years. Um, to call myself a practitioner might be a little bit of a stretch, and I can kind of give a little more context to that, but I did start my training in 2019.
Okay. And what drew you to the Kundalini practice in the first place?
It's so powerful. Um, at this time of my life, a little backstory for those of you um, listening that don't know me very well. I love learning, like I'm now a teacher, but became a teacher because I was a great student. And really, that's where all of this came from. I genuinely love learning. I have 3 degrees. Um, I was in college for 10 years. I have my undergrad, I have a master's, and I also have a doctorate. I went to law school. So after I finished law school in 2018, I did not stop. I kept studying things, little more informal things. I got certified in a lot of things. So my first like formal certification was with classic Buddhist meditation. And then I just continued on different types of shamanism, plant medicine, Kundalini, Reiki, and Reiki certified. And part of what that all like was and is when I found something that really lit up inside of me, like, I really wanted to know more about it. And if anyone listening has taken our fundamentals course, you'll have an idea of competency and gaining competency, which is the scale of competency that we have. It's our second module. Part of where that comes from is part of why I went often to formal certifications is because I was like, okay, I'd like to just learn it. If I'm going to be interested in it, why not go to a source of high quality information so I can actually like truly deep dive into it. That's part of my personality type. So um, getting certified in Kundalini came in what I would say I have 3 formal degrees from like formal institutions. When I graduated law school in 2018, like I said, I kept going. And those couple of years were filled with getting certified in different things because I really wanted to learn more about it. Kundalini fell into that. I was really drawn to things that I saw were highly effective. Um, I'm a certified life coach. You know this about me, Carly, but if anyone doesn't, I'm all about what makes things work. So for me, that's even what Ren is. It's about finding tools and modalities that help people make sense of their lives, make their lives work better. Nothing's a one size fits all. It really is about what works. I find that I get drawn to the things that I see kind of like fill multiple boxes at once. And Kundalini was that for me. I was like, holy smokes, it's very powerful. You have breath work. You're super, super tapping into the nervous system really, really effectively. Um, the mantra, the mudra, the stillness, I saw it like really hit a lot of boxes at once. And I had practiced different types of yoga. If you're unfamiliar with Kundalini, it's very different. It's not a traditional hatha, so it's not like vinyasa or ashtanga. It's more based around meditation, breath work, mudra, hand movements, um, things like that. So to me, why Kundalini? It touched a nerve for me at that time of being really attracted to the things that I saw were very effective.
Yeah, I want to say I would agree with that. I myself took Kundalini for the first time, I think in 2019, 2020, somewhere around there. And I could not believe how effective it was, especially for manifesting, for meditating. I was, I'm an avid meditator, kind of an astral projector at times, and I was going out, out, out. My visions were expansive, and I was able to bring them really into form with the practice of Kundalini. So I'm with you on that. Yeah. And I also am aware through other practitioners that there are some shadowy things in lineage, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about. So I want to just ask you, um, and being trained and having some years under your belt, if you would talk about that with me.
Yeah, I would. And I think part of my interest in talking about it as well is because on Ren, we're just launching our Bear Kundalini series, which is an ode to the fact that there is this practice that is so powerful. And there is also a lot that's starting to kind of come to the surface in the Kundalini Yoga lineage. And so I'm really curious about, can we separate the practice from the lineage? I'm not sure. I'd like to talk about that and discuss that. And then also, you know, yeah, can it be preserved, I guess, or can we still, I don't know, like, is it possible to not throw the baby out with the bathwater? Can we, um, yeah, like what's possible there? And I think that I tend to be as a professional, as a practitioner, as a professional, also as the founder of Ren, I tend to not talk about things that are kind of like hot topics, like that might be kind of polarizing. I'm like come from such a neutral standpoint, and in general in my life, I kind of take this approach. I'm not saying this is right because there's probably some just as many downsides to this of like you do you, I'll do me. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, like I'm going to observe, I'm going to take information in, but I've never like played this role of like rocking the boat. If I see something that I don't like, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm going to stay away from that and I'm going to move on. I'm going to learn from it, but I'm going to keep it all inside and then I'm going to kind of move on. Kundalini has been one of those things. So it's a little out of my comfort zone to even like start kind of talking and sharing some of my story about it. But, I think that, like I said, I do think that there's some shadows of avoiding at all costs talk avoiding conversations around things that could be triggering or polarizing or um and I think that I fall a little into that category sometimes of like maybe I do have something to share that would be a valuable contribution to the conversation around a larger thing that has a lot of controversy, and I'm not sharing it because I'm kind of like, oh, I'm just going to stay away from that. I'm just going to kind of stay, it's not stay quiet, I just kind of stay in my own lane. But especially now that we're going to start running these Bear Kundalini sessions, I think that it has become a little bit more relevant to me than it has been the past few years.
Right, because you're omitting with the Bear Kundalini, you're omitting a lot of the teachings and you're going straight into the practice. And even since I take the classes with you, even the music and the mantras, you're changing it up a bit. And it's just by the way, it's been very effective for me. So I do think,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm exploring it. So, a little bit of my backstory. I did get started my Kundalini training with Rama in 2019. And back at that time, again, I was studying a lot of things. So even with law school, I was going into a lot of things not to become a practitioner or do it professionally. I was really studying for my own learning. Um, and, again, even with law school, I didn't go into law school thinking, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer. It was, I feel like there's something here for me to learn, and same with Kundalini. So I didn't have huge expectations. I also didn't know a ton. I kind of stay in my own lane. Um, Part of that I think is also my two in my human design. I'm a 2/4, so I have the hermit in me. I'm very focused on what my tasks are. I'm a finisher. I'm like really diligent with the things that I need to do. And it's not that I don't care about other things. Maybe I genuinely just like, I think I'm supposed to just focus on the things that I'm into. And I think that comes from the two also mixed with the projector. It's like our job to like really be all about what our design is and like what we came here to do. So um, I didn't know a ton about the lineage, but it was a yes for me, which is so clear for me when I have a yes. So I went into it, but I didn't know a ton about it. Definitely didn't know about like air quotes the lineage, did not know much about Rama, and also didn't have a ton of expectations. So I was really going in just very neutrally, very curious. And I was pretty blown away actually at um, some of it was very apparent to me very off the bat, like a lot of the how we're kind of loosely saying or generally saying the shadow side. I was pretty shocked actually by the intensity of that. And so if you want to talk more about that, I'll let you kind of ask some questions to see how to go about this because um, it was a very tough week for me. That first week was very, very difficult. I've never talked about this before. So, you know, and it has
Yeah,
been 5 years, but
I do want to know about that because you and I study with the same mentor for ontology. And so I'm curious about, because I know you were enveloped in that work while you were at Rama. So how did Rama trigger you since you were studying ontology? Where did that
oh my
fit?
gosh. Yeah, it was so, I was like full-time study ontology. And for those of you listening that don't know what ontology is, if you've taken our course, The Fundamentals, that's ontology. A lot of the stuff that in the sessions that I do, it's ontological based, meaning it's kind of like a very simple way of saying it is linguistics meets human dignity and spirituality, right? Like it's the focus of the language and the words and how we use that in a day-to-day moment-to-moment basis, not talking about grandeur um philosophical concepts. It's like what are we doing in every moment when we're talking to our friends, our partners, our children, our coworkers, the people at the grocery store, when we're thinking all day long, we're in conversation with ourselves. So it's really about being very accurate and very aware of the words that we're our human beingness, capital B beingness, how we show up in the world, and also how it makes us feel, how much that affects our human dignity, ours and others. And so I was full-time study at this point, getting trained in ontology. It was completely opening up my world. It was taking me from a place in life where I was feeling like not suicidal, but definitely like, I'm not so sure about this. You know, I had a very, very let me think of the word. It was, I had like a very massive spiritual practice at the time. So using lots of different tools, but lots of prayer, lots of meditation, lots of things. I was trying to figure out how to feel better. And all of that worked until it stopped working. And then I started feeling, I was having a hard time leaving my home. I was feeling very, I was experiencing an experience of like ecstasy when I was alone. And then anytime I was out of my house or trying to be in relationship with anyone, literally the person at the corner store, didn't matter. I was experiencing a lot of deep like pain and suffering.
Mhm.
Ontology gave me my life back because it gave me a framework for how to navigate everyday life in a way that I didn't have. Because what I learned is that I had out evolved the language I had. I had spent so much time in deep prayer and evolution, and I was rapidly evolving. I didn't have the language to bridge that gap. So I was experiencing something, but only when I wasn't using language, I could just feel a space of ecstasy. Then anytime I needed to think or speak, it was like it was just getting crumpled. It was very uncomfortable. I was having a very hard time. So that's the backstory there.
Yeah,
Ontology gave me my
I
life
wanted
back.
to
Yeah.
say, yeah, thank you for articulating that. I had a very similar experience with the ontology work and leading up to it, same type of experience for different reasons, but I was in the same place and that work brought me back into my body, gave me a way to bridge the gap in language and became highly effective because of it. And also a little more sensitive, which I think is where you're going to go
Yes,
next.
this is where I'm going to go.
Because it was like, okay, now I have all of this, and I felt very masterful in my life. And then I realized, oh shit, nobody else speaks like this. Like,
Yeah.
and ouch, it all hurts to hear
Yeah.
human beings talk to each other and to me. So,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. That's where I'm heading. Um, because when, yes, so then I was in Roma, started that training, and I was the language and the speaking of the teachings and the way that the teachings were passed down. So a lot of teachings are just played back in recording form from yogis past, right? Um, Yogi Bhajan is, one of the air quotes forefathers. I think this is what people are trying to sort out. And I'm not like one of those people that's doing a deep dive. So if you're interested in finding out about the lineage, I don't have that information, but you can find it. I think people are starting to really like do some deep dives in the lineage. So a lot of these recordings are replayed back. So that's intense in itself, right? I was like, holy smokes, right? Because I was so then attuned to make wrongs. This is a very simple way. When we are speaking and make wrongs, something is right or it's wrong. It is so harmful to us as human beings because it's not accurate. So there was so much make wrongs, loss of dignity, and it was really hard for me to hear. That's one thing. But then the teachers also present were also speaking in a very similar way. So Guru Jagat at the time, of course, before she had passed away, was the main teacher, and her speaking style was very similar. And I found that actually to be a bit more harmful. I think she had more. She was so powerful and forceful. So there was something to that I felt it more, and it was very difficult. And so from the very beginning, what I was experiencing in this training was, again, we were in a certification, we were in a training. And so um, it was like this intense flippy floppy where we would be in a Kundalini exercise practice, right? So there would be, I don't know how many people were there, tons. I mean, there was a lot of people in this one space. So let's say we're doing a 90-minute Kundalini. I mean, the energy, the space was so vibrant, so open. People were getting so open. The space felt light and airy and just like amazing. I mean, it's moments like this that you're like, holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
what is possible when you have a lot of human beings, especially in one space, doing something like that at the same
Mm.
time? Without any psychedelics or anything, breath, movement, energy, like holy shit, mind blown, right? So I was like getting so blown away by the practice. And then as soon as it was over and the speaking started, I felt the whole room just zoom. It
Mm.
was like, oh my gosh. So for me, it was like kind of like a little bit of like, I don't know, waterboarding torture. It was kind of like this like energetic torture for me because I was also so aware of how it was coming, because at that point I was so trained in language and speaking, it was very, very intense and hard for me. So that was like the biggest thing. I mean, do you have more questions? I mean, I can go into some examples and specifics or other aspects of it that were really hard for me. I mean, that's
Yeah,
definitely was like the main thing.
what came up when you were saying that is like this feeling, because I've had it in plant medicine community of being in 5D and experiencing all this beauty, and then you're like smacked into more of a 3D experience where language is really problematic. And so that's where my mind went when you were speaking about that. So
Yeah. And, and I really want to say this and I really want to emphasize this. Like you don't know what you don't know, and like when I was so trained in this, especially, and I heard this from one of our mutual teachers, Nyla, and she heard this from one of her teachers. Don't make people wrong for not knowing what you came here to teach them.
right, right.
Right. So like that always really sits with me when I'm in a situation like that. I'm not stewing over like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like sad. I'm genuinely like, oh, shit, like this sucks, because it could be so much more effective, with some training. It's like, I'm not going to make people wrong for not knowing. Most people don't know about ontology. Most people don't have any idea what is possible in their lives, right? Like,
Right.
have no idea. So I'm not sitting from a position of, I can't believe that this person isn't doing it different, more just a sadness and an intensity of the experience of, this is causing a lot of harm.
Right.
And
And as a projector, waiting for the invitation to speak about it is the hardest part. Because I'm always like, how can I help? How can I fix this situation? I have to wait for the person to ask for it, you know?
totally. And at least so far in my life, that invitation hasn't fully opened up yet, right? Especially in situations like that. In this, there was one other, I think for me, like I said, I was doing a lot of trainings at the time. There was another lineage that I went into that I saw there, everything's on a scale. We cause harm to ourselves and others all day long, every day. Some of it is conscious and we're aware. That's what we say is more below the red line. We use this term. Sometimes we aren't aware. It's kind of like in this neutral zone of like, oh, as soon as we are aware, we want to shift and we want to change. And then other times we would say the kind of air quotes opposite of causing harm is opening possibility. So this is happening all day long, every day. We cause harm to ourselves and others all day long that we aren't even aware that we're doing. Um, but I think what I saw at this time that was very difficult for me was there was a couple of pockets. So sometimes I would train in something and I would study in something and I would be like, this is a really helpful tool. There was a lot that wasn't that helpful, not necessarily causing harm, just like kind of not kind of watered down, not super powerful or potent. I would kind of take the gems that worked for me that I wanted to keep, and then all the kind of stuff that wasn't very potent, just whatever, just leave it and kind of move on. There was a couple of things that I studied that I was triggered by the intense amount of harm that I was seeing was actually getting caused versus like, oh, this isn't that powerful or effective. This is more like, oh my gosh, holy smokes, like people might be leaving this worse off than they came. And that's really hard to see and experience. And when I was going through this training with Rama, I experienced it like that. And so my thing was, again, not like, oh my gosh, anyone's wrong, more like sadness, I guess. And then also there's a lot of harm being caused. It's really hard for me to um, witness this and see it. And I think there was also a part of me that's like, I don't know, this might come off wrong and just, I'm just saying it. That was like, I'm surprised so many people are drinking the Kool-Aid.
Hmm.
I think that surprised me too.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that. And I think most people could that have ever been to, even church, right? It's like these are the places where, these spiritual teachings are being passed down, yet they're being passed down by someone who maybe isn't properly reflecting on it, sharing in a way that isn't make wrong, or, and it is causing harm and causing a lot of problems with psyche, just, overthinking, then judging ourselves. And yeah, I I I hear you. I hear you. So I'm curious about, and I know you started Bear Kundalini mainly for this reason, but what is your hope with that for Ren? Since the lineage, since you're identifying shadows in the lineage, and you're obviously going to be careful not to pass those on, would you pass on any teachings knowing that you're grounded in the ontology work? Would you then pass on things that would be helpful, or are you going to keep this completely the bear practice
Yeah.
minus all
Yeah.
that?
My intention is to keep it bare. I want to give an example before I fully answer that question because I was talking about this a lot, but this is like a small example was when I was in this training. And I have to admit, to be honest, when I was there, there were some days that I left, and I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I was trying to be very quiet, like be the invisible person in the corner that's probably not invisible at all, but like really trying to keep to myself. But there was a couple of days that it got so bad that I actually just left. And I would go and I would call Nyla or reach out to her. I would have a session and be like, whoa, like, can you help me ground out of this, or like get some more understanding of like what's happening? And so one of the examples was, I remember someone, it was like in a lecture time. Again, it's just a lot of make wrong, a lot of judgment, a lot of this is the way to do it. And if you're not doing it, you're wrong or bad, which just isn't so with anything, no matter what it is. Someone asked a question, and I remember the question I related to. I had asked Nyla this same question like just days before, just like something that I was experiencing in life as a wide awake person in the world trying to navigate. And there was an area that I was feeling a lot of loss, sadness, grief, loss of dignity. And I don't remember exactly what it was. I could probably find it in my notes somewhere, but I remember someone asking a very similar question. Guru Jagat Katie went on to this huge rant. And I think like very close to verbatim said to this person, ultimately after this big long rant that was like, you know, you're stupid for asking that, was like, you just have to be better. And I remember just being like, oh, like, no, no, that's not true. That's ungrounded. That's not actually what's so. The what's so is, here is an amazing human being that very obviously cares about how she's showing up in the world. She wants to help others. She wants to feel better, and she's experiencing something. Guess what? For you on this call and anyone that's listening, if you're experiencing something and it doesn't feel right in your body, there is something going on that
Mm.
you have the right to have articulated.
Mhm.
Because if it's working for you, it's not going to feel that way in your body. Right? If you have the accurate distinction, it's not going to feel that way in your body. So if you are in breakdown, doesn't matter with what in your life, if something is causing you sadness, grief, discomfort, if you are thinking about this thing, this is the what so. Might not be grounded. There are some things that we use in ontology to say, okay, let's get grounded and da da da. But it is there for you, and you deserve to have that acknowledged at least, and then have the opportunity to work on that or work through that. And so this was a really hard experience for me, because I was like, no, that's a thing.
Yeah.
I know that because I'm experiencing that same thing.
Mhm.
And I just asked my teacher, and what I got was someone to acknowledge me in that and say, oh yeah, this is what's going on.
Mhm.
I think maybe it was something around, it wasn't around small talk, but just like, if someone asks what you do, or, I don't even remember, something like this, but it wasn't a small thing. If you're wide awake in the world and you're trying to navigate life, and you feel who you are as a being, and you're having a hard time with translating that into linear being a human, this is a big deal, right? Like, it is a hard thing to navigate. And so I just remember being like, wow, I had the same thing. And I asked my teacher, and I left that with distinctions that helped me go out into my day more confident. I had less sadness, less grief, and I had more confidence because I had someone say, oh yeah, this is a very difficult aspect of being wide awake in the world. And these are some of the things that are at play with this experience. Here's some tools, because now think about it this way. I left that conversation having more dignity,
Mhm.
right? More beingness and more ability to navigate that. I saw this same question get asked and that not happen. And instead, this person is left feeling stupid, wrong, probably a little bit embarrassed and chastised, and then told, you just have to be better. Oh my gosh, that was so hard for me. And so, like, I remember, again, I'm a projector, I have to wait for the invitation. I'm usually trying to like stay out of harm's way in situations like this, aka sometimes um yeah, anyway, people, yeah, there can be some intense energy. So I'm just kind of staying out of the way. But I do remember at some point this person walked back by me in like a break time. And I think I just said, hey, you know what? Like, I heard your question earlier. I was struggling with the same thing very recently. Like, do you just want to read my notes? Because I was asking one of my teachers and I got these 3 pages of amazing notes on this topic. And she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And she read, I just had her read, I wasn't trying to teach her about it. I wasn't trying to take the floor. I just said, hey, if you would like to read my notes, like feel free. I still do, I take diligent notes. And she just scrolled through. I had my iPad and she scrolled through and she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like that makes me feel so much better. And I was like, yeah, you're welcome. I didn't make a big deal of it, but it was just like, hey, yeah, it was just too much. And so for that person, if you remember who that is and you remember that and you're listening to this, I still remember that moment. And yeah, so little things like that. I mean, not little, that was big, but all of the time. Like that's a small example in terms of like how often that was happening. That was basically how most of everything would go. And it was just really, it was hard, a lot of harm caused. And then smaller things, just like you have to wear certain things, which this is where I kind of want to go into the help shift, which is like, I don't know the answer to that. You
Mm.
know, I don't know. Everyone wears white. At this time of my life, I just genuinely didn't wear white. It didn't resonate with me. I wear a lot of darker colors. I wear tons of white now and lighter colors, but at this time of my life, I just didn't. I didn't even have it to wear. And I would go into a room of, I would say 95% of the people in white, and I would be in black and not thinking anything of it. I wasn't trying to whatever. I was just wearing what I had and also just whatever. And, being told like you need to wear white for these reasons. These are the types of things that I don't know the answer to. And I would like to talk about that as we talk about like the shift and shifting things up. I don't know the right answer to
Yeah,
that, but I do
yeah,
know
I'm
that,
curious about it too. Just
yeah,
what is the difference there now? I can say, with mushroom ceremony, for example, we recommend that you wear white because it lets the most energy in the pure, it's pure, and so I can understand it. Although, does it actually make a difference? I don't know. Could we just all be naked? I mean, that could also be like we're here, right? So this is
yeah, I don't know. And so I want to shift, but I will say I had at least one person come up to me that was like, thank you so much for wearing black because like it's kind of given me permission to feel like I can wear what I want to wear. And again, like I kind of went into this a little blind. And so I didn't think anything of it until I got there and I was like, oh my gosh. Like you can tell when you're in an unsafe environment. And I
yeah.
was like, oh no, this might actually not be like safe. What does that look like? What is safe for me? It just registered to my nervous system. Oh no, like this actually might not be okay. What could happen? Don't
Mm.
know. Anyway, so
Did it feel like, and I'm asking because I've had an experience like that, where you enter a room and in your body you're going, this just doesn't feel safe. For me, I remember thinking, is this a cult? What is happening? That was the word that came into my mind when I experienced what I experienced in my body. And oftentimes I think when we're in rooms with large groups of people kind of doing the same thing, and I'm wondering in my mind, like, is that what this is? Or is that in my psyche programmed that this could be that? And now I'm afraid of it, right? So there's like all that.
totally. And I think that, you know, I think that especially at this point in my life, what I had the grounding and the footing in ontology, which really made me feel safe in the world, like fully safe and grounded. And like, so I think that gave me that tool of not fearing a cold. At that point, I knew how to make assessments my own and ground them. And like, maybe that's always also kind of just been part of my personality. I've never really fully been afraid of like drinking the Kool-Aid. I've
Mm.
had some amount of ability to make my own judgments and assessments and don't really care what other people think, kind of doing my own thing, marching by the beat of my own drum. But, I think that this is a side note. I think that when it even comes to cults and this is all getting, this is to the forefront. I mean, you go on Netflix or whatever, and you see all these documentaries. I'm shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is still happening. put that aside. And I think that to me, the antidote is the more people that have the tools for understanding how to ground,
Yes.
make grounded assessments, which we teach as one of our modules in our course, The Fundamentals, make grounded assessments, and also how to assess harm. That will be the antidote to these cults and these things that are actually causing a lot of harm, all the way to death, of course, we know, which is possible, but also lots of harm across lots of different areas. When people have the ability and the actual structures and tools for how to make grounded assessments, how to assess, like I said, harm, competency, those things won't work anymore because people will have the tools in their toolbox. And so I think I had that. I wasn't scared. I was more like, oh my God, I can't believe people are really drinking this Kool-Aid. This seems so far. This does seem, I guess I don't think I probably thought the word cult, but I would have thought maybe more like, this is causing a lot of harm. Like this is kind of scary. But yeah, I think that my nervous system is like, what does that feel like in my nervous system? I think is like, I was in another training where I was worried for my life because I didn't drink the Kool-Aid and they were not happy with it. So then I become the target,
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was more that of like, ooh, let me just like try to stay as invisible as possible. Don't make any whatever, but also I wanted to enjoy the heck out of the money I put in and learn and do the different exercises and kriyas and staying up all night meditations and all the crazy stuff. I also wanted to enjoy it. I didn't want to like actually jeopardize, which I've seen that happen. So anyway, yeah, I don't know if I fully answered your question. For me, it was like, yeah, am I safe here? Because I see what's going on. Probably she, whoever's leading it can feel that. What's going to happen? Let me just
Right.
try to stay as invisible as possible is usually how I go about that.
Yeah. So then with Bear Kundalini, tell me a little bit about that and what you are bringing to those sessions and how
I,
is it still Kundalini, right?
right. So I feel really passionate about Kundalini as a practice, so I, with many of the things I'm certified in, I haven't necessarily practiced these specifically, through the years. I kind of combine it to my toolbox. I did Kundalini a lot one-on-one with clients when I originally started my company, and it was more of a one-on-one agency and service like that. But I was never a Kundalini teacher out in the world. I didn't do it at studios or whatever. This is actually my first time doing it. And I don't, and part of that is because I just am like curious about it. And I'm kind of stepping into this space a little timidly because there is so much kind of coming up with Kundalini. But I'm wanting to say, like, I don't know, I want to explore it. I feel safe. I feel grounded. I feel like I have the ability to explore the space. I'm not super upset by what's happening in the Kundalini lineage because I didn't have big expectations to begin with. So I'm not like having to like leave something to try something new. I'm truly just kind of coming at it from a neutral standpoint because I really believe in Kundalini and its effectiveness as a tool for anyone's toolkit. I have a 16-month-old son. I was fully and completely starting over from scratch from being in my postpartum days. So I had to relearn and rebuild my nervous system. And being in a postpartum experience, you're in such survival mode. You're in such, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're right at the bottom. Like you have to be. There is no other place to be, especially with your first child. And so I was coming from a place of totally like just rebuilding. And so I really believe, and I think this is for anyone that's on a alive in the world, anywhere, honestly, right now. Like, I fully believe that we need more effective tools more than ever before because the world is not going to stop for us. So, what I see is happening is people are suffering because they can't get beyond the, we could call this sometimes like people say inner glass ceiling. I would just say beyond the limit that the tools give them access to, not because of the tools that they have are wrong, just, hey, you need more to go beyond, right? So the world's not stopping. It is so intense. It's going to keep going. It's not slowing down. So what I'm really passionate about, one of the things is giving more people access to more tools. Hello, Ren Wellbeing. That's why we have this. But also personally, I'm really interested in really effective ones that I have seen are really effective. Kundalini falls into that category. So I'm kind of timidly stepping into that. But part of that is because I really believe that it is something that can give people a lot of relief.
Hmm. I mean, every time I've sat, which has been 3 now, right? 3 sessions that you've had, I've had release, crying. Crying is so healthy. And I didn't expect that, but I did. I had a lot of release and then a lot of breakthrough and a lot of new downloads right after. So,
Yeah. So part of what makes Kundalini, in my experience, and also how it's taught, I'm pretty sure, so effective is that you don't need a lot of time to make a really big shift in your energetic field and even your physical body. So compared to something like vinyasa, um, different hatha flows, it takes a little bit more time. Kundalini, it really kicks a punch, right? So if you just have 60 seconds, 90 seconds, you can get a lot out of a very simple Kundalini breathwork exercise or meditation. Think breath of fire, think spinal twist. We did that the other day. That's one of my
yes.
go-tos in the morning. Spinal twist. I do this other one, which I don't even remember if I learned it or if I made this one up, but I do one in our courses all of the time to help clear the energy. 90 seconds is really all you need that can actually shift the whole energetic space around you and your physical body. So it's so effective. And so again, this is where it comes down to, I'm just a believer in tools. If people have 90 seconds, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, if you have some Kundalini in your toolbox, you can make a really big shift in your day really quickly. So again, here I am in, full-time working mom running this amazing wellness startup and with a 1 year old and full on. And I don't have the 2 hours in the morning that I used to do a very slow, I used to do a 3 hour like morning routine with
Hmm.
all the things, right? Prayer and everything. Okay. I have like literally, if I can get 1 minute, I'm lucky. And you know where I usually do the 1 minute is when I'm going to get my son out of bed. I let him sit in his crib and I sit right in front of his crib and I'll do like a 60-second spinal twist or something, and it's like, if I can get that, I'm really lucky. So I really believe in that. And I think that human beings, like this is just the nature of the world. We still need to be out in the world doing our things. We don't have the ability or the luxury to just tap out, go to an ashram and live this, you know, lifestyle of some people, but that's not the masses. That's not what is being asked for us. And even as practitioners, we're not being asked to go off and be alone anymore. We're being asked to live a full on life. What is it like to be wide awake in the world, living a full on life with a family, with partners, with jobs and careers? And you got stuff you got to do. But how do we also feel okay? Okay, this is the long answer. Kundalini is one of those ways. So I really believe in it, and it's come back around in my life for that reason. It's so effective for a normal day, for the realities of the normal demands of a day. You can keep doing everything that you have to do. Just add, it's possible to add some stuff in small doses. So that's part of why this is coming more to the forefront. Like I said, I'm kind of tentatively stepping into that space because I haven't been a Kundalini practitioner,
Yeah.
like as a career, as work. And I'm interested in exploring it because I believe in it. And so especially now, more's coming up about the lineage and, the shadow sides. And I'm like, what about the practice? So I would love to, yeah, like definitely before we finish today and we can shift into that. Yeah, like what is possible? Is it possible to maintain the practice without the lineage? Do you have to wear certain colors? Does that change the effectiveness? I'm all about effectiveness. So part of what I'm exploring now, so to give, bare Kundalini, what is bare Kundalini? It's meant to be Kundalini, just Kundalini exercises, Kundalini sets with nothing else. No lectures, no sermons. I'm not going to teach you about anything. I'm not going to, it's just Kundalini. Everything's optional. You're never going to be told that you're wrong or bad for not doing something. And I'm just exploring, what is it like if different music is used and not traditional kind of Kundalini mantras like typically or like I was taught with. What happens if you give some different variations and, play around with time and you use different mantras? What happens if you let people pick their own mantras, which I like to play around with a lot? I don't know, I think it's all about effectiveness. What I'm trying to explore and discover for myself in that space of Kundalini and also for others is do what works, right? Like do what's most effective. The music, I've been exploring with different music, but I'm still like not saying, oh, because I won't use traditional Kundalini mantras. They're powerful. I don't mind using them. I'm kind of just curious, like, do they have to be used? Could the practice be as effective with
Yeah.
different music? Does it lose something? Is it losing too much that it's like, yeah, this is probably an important thing, or does it not lose enough? Things like that. I don't know the answer to. I love a good headband, head wrap, turban headband. I have tons of long hair, you know, um, but things like that, the color that you're wearing, is it needed? Does it change the effectiveness of the practice? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answers, but I am willing to explore it. And it's part of also like with the Bear Kundalini, like feedback always welcome because I really want to hear feedback from people. You've been to all the ones that I've taught. I've been asking you a lot, some of the feedback, because I'm really just exploring it. Because I don't know the answers. And I'm not anti Kundalini lineage. I'm not.
Right. Yeah, for me, I mean, it's been as effective. No, I haven't sat with Kundalini mantras in a couple of years. But it's been very effective for me. I was going to say earlier, one of my favorite things that you do in practice is after, a 90-minute segment, you'll say, now sit in the space that you've created for yourself. I've not had that happen in other practices. And what I love about that is it really gives me a chance to feel that and feel how effective it actually is. And it feels like this completely clear space after each segment. And it's like, wow, I really shifted something for myself. And I end up feeling more capable. Your sessions just happened to be on 3 particular evenings for me where I was going through massive amounts of transformation and transition during my days. And so, yeah, stepping back out into the world, as you were saying, as someone who spent a lot of time more in monk life, I'll call it, and that's more comfortable for me. And now going out into the world and having to be effective, I've noticed big shifts with the Bear Kundalini, and it's only been 3 times. So
Thanks for saying that. And I think part of, what you said about, I really prompt a lot to feel the space you just created for yourself.
yeah,
Because everything in the world, the way that I see it, every modality, every tool, everything that's on Ren Wellbeing, why is it there? It's not there for the practitioner and it's not there for the modality. It's there for the tool and what it brings to the human's life. That to me is the end all be all. Like that is what it's all about. So when we're in these Bear Kundalini sessions, it's not there because it's Kundalini. We're not there to honor a certain thing, or my sessions of Bear Kundalini aren't to have Kundalini. It's so that people have a tool, they get something, they feel something from it. That's the goal of doing it. Why would we do anything? Because it makes your life better. It works for you. You're able to go out into your day and show up and be better. And so that's part of why I prompt that is because that's how I use it. Because everyone should be able to have that moment of some of the most clear moments maybe that you'll get ever. right?
Yeah.
Like in a fresh space, after you've just done it's a Kundalini thing that's really cleared your space. It's some of the most like, if you want to feel air quotes high off of breathing, you get this and you're clear-minded, you're grounded, you're in your body. You don't get that from psychedelics. You don't
Right.
get that from other ways of expanding your consciousness, but you do from breath work, and you can from breath work and from some Kundalini exercises. And so part of why I do that is because that's how I use it, because, and I probably say this, you deserve it. You just created the space for yourself. You deserve to bask in this space.
Mhm.
Right? Like you deserve to bask in the space that you just created for yourself, because the only reason it's there is because you did the thing. It's not Kundalini, right? Like it's Kundalini is a vessel or a structure for helping us get there, but you create that space. You are doing the things, right? Whatever you did created that space. And that's, to me, that could never be overlooked, because that's, to me, yeah, like the whole point of it. So thanks for saying that. Um, I think that another thing is that I want more people to know that they can access those spaces. That is the whole thing of stillness. And I recently talked with Nyla a lot about stillness because of her energy sessions. And we have a blog post coming out sometime. I don't know exactly when it's scheduled, sometime in the next few months, about breaking chronic stress cycles. And we talk about also Nyla's stillness, right? In ontology and how you and I are trained, like we understand stillness and like how important that is. But I want to help bring that to the forefront for people that aren't aware yet. Why is stillness so important?
Mhm.
Really, what is that? And part of what Nyla and I talked about recently is, if and when any human has the ability to get back to these spaces of stillness in their daily life, that is maybe one of the most important things that we can have in 2024. And part of how we can do that is you have to feel the space to know how to get back to it.
Mhm. Yes.
Until you feel it, you don't know how to get there. And so it feels really overwhelming. If someone says, okay, calm, or still your nervous system, or find a space of stillness, or calm your mind, it's not possible if you've never felt it.
Right. And what does that even mean in the modern world? Because if you're out there for a day, you know, it's intense. When I come home from a day of whatever I'm doing outside of my little house, I have to sit. I sit at the altar. I have various practices to let that all go. It is intense out there. So,
It's so intense. And I think that part of also why I appreciate Kundalini as a tool, especially now more than ever, is because it is very active. It can be very active, right? Like it's not just, okay, sit cross-legged and will your thoughts away. Some people who are very practiced can do that, but a lot of people can't. I'm very trained. And if I'm triggered by something and I'm in an upset, the last thing I'm going to do is sit down. I need to like be moving. Like I am like, if I'm spinning, I need something that can combat the spinning. And Kundalini can do that because you're using action and movement. You can you can match the busyness of 2024 with Kundalini. And what's cool about it is then you can drop in. And
yeah.
like that to me is what is, I think, going to stop working or not be as effective, like classic meditation, not because it's not a great tool. It takes a lot of practice. And I don't see that it can match 2024 and the realities of living a full-on life in 2024 the same way that Kundalini can, because Kundalini packs a punch, man. It is going to show up. And I see that. I see that it can meet you where you are in your life, in your energy. If you're spinning, if you're at an upset, you can, right? Fist of anger. Like you
Yeah.
can be there. You can match that and then drop in from that. And I think that's something that more and more people are going to need. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You can get into all of your feelings through Kundalini, through the breath. I agree with that.
Yeah. And then find that space of stillness. And I think that the more people feel what's possible and knowing that they can create that, the more, of course, chance that people are going to be able to come back to that. And anything that provides that now in 2024 and beyond, like I said, we know this world's not going to stop. it's going to keep going and building. Anything, any tool that we have that allows us to find stillness in our daily life without expecting us to change or move or live in a different home or need a lot more money or need different clothes or a spiritual partner or, you know, all these things that it's like, oh, when we have these, and no, 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 no. You don't need any of those things. The way it feels to me is we need every person living full on their life the way that feels most aligned to them,
Yes.
no matter what that looks like. You also don't need a lot of money and things and different clothes and whatever to find it. So I think any tool that really allows people to that can come into their daily life, right? Like can be incorporated without expecting lots of change, can meet them where they are. More tools like that, you know, the better. And I think that we have on Ren tools that do that. And I'm really working to continue to create more and more space for that to be the reality, because I want people to use Ren Wellbeing for that. I want it to be filled with sessions and practitioners that are living real lives. They are real people and they are meeting people where they are, because you can find stillness and you can find well-being anywhere. And I just believe in that. So
Yeah, thank you. That I think you covered, because we're at time, and my last question was just that, what makes one of them was what makes it different, what makes Bear Kundalini different. You answered that. And then what's a takeaway? What can we take away from this session? And I think you hit it. It's like what I want to say is I want people to come on and try the Bear Kundalini and see where it hits, because it's going to help people, I think, and it has for me, helped me really tune into my own body. And it's less about, what we have to do or who we have to be. We get to be us and free. And yeah, so thank you.
totally, you're welcome. Yeah, I think I covered everything. And I will end by saying, yeah, for anyone that hasn't tried it, try Bear Kundalini, come to a session. It's so beginner friendly. Um, Bear Kundalini is also not, I don't have it built to kill people. Like sometimes like that is kind of can be how Kundalini's taught. I think there's really value in pushing limits, but right now how Bear Kundalini is, it's not meant to be for that. It's meant to be a breath of fresh air and teach people some of the basics and be gentle. You can always make something what you want it, but it's really meant to be gentle. So yeah, I'll leave people with that. Come try it if you're new, if you haven't tried it, please come try it. It's beginner friendly. And then for anyone that's listening to this that might also be a Kundalini practitioner or teacher and is looking for a space and a place to be with Kundalini in a different way that might not be as, I don't know how to say, just like this is the end all be all way to do it and this is not, like, I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out. We are a space of just, yeah, really like neutrality. And I would like to see what's possible when more people come together that believe in the power of the practice, but don't want to be, you know, strapped down by some limiting things.
Yeah. Tied down to the structure is what I was thinking.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sophie. It was good to talk to you
Yeah.
today. And
Yeah.
I'll
So
see
good to talk to
everyone.
you.
Yeah. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.